안녕하세요. 저는 국가보험사 국제과장 진용진입니다. 오늘 세계적인 피아니스트이시고 또 한국적 참여역사이신 세이모어 번스타인 씨 이렇게 기자회견에 많은 관심을 주셔서 감사드리고요.
What is this for?
That's the report.
For recording.
Oh, the recording. Oh, I see.
참고로 지금 90세, 우리나라로 90세인데 아주 정정하셔요. 하시고 지금 현재 여기 앞에 있는 이 현수막은 1952년 10월 8일 날 부산에서 이렇게 공연을 앞두고 만든 현수막인데요. 이걸 본인이 직접 이렇게 가져오셨어요. 가져오시고 그다음에 이걸 갖다가 한국에 기증하고 싶다는 의사를 이렇게 밝혀줬습니다.
That hung over the main street in Daegu. And there were so many people coming to the concert, we had to give it twice.
자, 그래서 참고하시고 지금부터 우리 번스타인 씨를 모시고 기자회견을 하도록 하겠습니다. Okay. Do you want to speak to welcome to the reporters?
Yes, is this the KBS staff?
Yeah, here.
Okay, so I want to thank you for welcoming me back to Korea. Korea is like my second home because this is my 5th visit to Korea. First as a soldier, and then I came back 3 other times to give master classes, lectures, and a book of mine was translated into Korean. And so I went to universities and gave master classes to your Korean pianists. And I must tell you that your Korean pianists are among the best in the world.
네, 이렇게 제가 다시 한국에 오게 됐고요. 이것을 환영해 주셔서 감사합니다. 한국 같은 경우에는 저에게 있어서 두 번째 고향이라고 좀 보시면 되겠는데요. 제가 실제로 한국의 5번째 방문입니다. 첫 번째 방문은 군인으로서 방문했고요. 그 다음에 나머지 한 3번 정도는요, 마스터 클래스 강연을 하고 또 그에 다른 강연을 하기 위해 왔습니다. 그리고 또 제 책이 한국어로 번역되어서 책 관련해서도 왔었습니다. 그래서 대학에 가서 마스터 클래스를 한국의 학생들에게 가르쳤었는데요. 한국의 피아노 전공하는 학생들 같은 경우에는 세계 최고 수준이라고 생각합니다.
I only understood the last word.
제가 마지막 말만 이해할 수 있는 것 같습니다.
Are you going to translate?
I already translated.
Oh, you already did. I see.
You will have.
So now they're going to ask me questions, yes?
이제 질문을 하시면 되는데요.
네, 지금 번스타인 씨한테 질문하실 손 들어주시고 어레인지 하도록 하겠습니다.
저는 프리랜서로 컬럼을 쓰는 사람인데요. 2가지 내지 3가지를 좀 질문하겠습니다. 먼저 한국의 영화가 세이모어라고 소개가 되어 있어서 또 책에는 시모어라고 되어 있고 그래서 본인의 프로퍼나운이 이름이 시모어인지 세이모어인지를 좀 정확히 해주셨으면 좋겠고. 2번째로 케네스 고든이라는 바이올리니스트 나중에 뉴욕 필의 부학장까지 한 걸로 아는데 그분이 생존에 있는지 그게 좀 궁금하고 또 사진에 월트 톰슨이라는 분하고 같이 사진을 찍은 걸로 되어 있는데 그분은 제가 알기로는 정통 음악가는 아니었는데 어떤 보컬 같은 거, 성악가로 활동을 했던 건지 그거를 좀 알려주셨으면 좋겠고 그 다음에 이 사진에 한평숙 독창이라고 나오는데 한평숙 씨는 일본 고등음악 학교 나오고 1955년도에 비제 카르멘으로도 출연해서 당시로서는 상당히 유명했던 소프라노였는데 2분과의 인연이 어떻게 된 건지 좀 궁금합니다.
I am a freelancer columnist, and I have 2 to 3 questions for you. First one is that the film, the documentary on about you was introduced to Korea, and in the title, your name was pronounced as Seymour, not Seymour. But in your in your book translated into Korean, it pronounced as Seymour. What's the proper pronunciation of your name? That was the first question.
I see. May I ask one at a time? Shall I respond to that now? Okay.
하나씩 질문에 대해서 먼저 답을 드리고 그다음에 다시 또 질문 드리는 식으로 하겠습니다.
It doesn't matter whether you say Seymour or Seymour or Seymour, and it doesn't matter if you say Bernstein or Bernstein. It doesn't matter at all. Some people say either or either. There's a question about how to pronounce that. Actually, I call myself Seymour Bernstein.
예, 그래서 실제로 뭐 이름이 제가
You want me to look at them?
시모든, 세이모든, 사이모든 상관이 없습니다. 번스틴 또 번스타인 상관없고요. 이더라는 그 단어에 대해서 이더라고 부르는 사람도 있고 아이더라고 부르는 사람도 있잖아요. 근데 저는 제 이름을 세이모 번스타인이라고 부릅니다. And the second question was about the violinist Kenneth Golden. I know that he later worked in the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, and is he still alive? And also the other person is Walt Thompson in the poster. I understand that he was not a traditional vocal musician, but anyhow, the person was a vocal musician. So do you talk about him more?
Well, Kenneth Gordon was in the first violin section of the New York Philharmonic. He is a very famous violinist. He's very much alive. I saw him last month, and I wanted him to come here, but I don't know, it couldn't be arranged somehow. Together, we gave concerts in Korea because he came over on the ship with me. He also was inducted into the army about a month after I was. So we both had infantry training. And now you can picture these 2 musicians. We're on the deck of a ship gliding into Incheon Harbor on April 24th, 1951. Do you know why I remember that date? It was my birthday. It was my 23rd birthday. And I looked out to the coast of Korea at 5:30 in the morning with a steel helmet and army gear, dressed in army gear, and my M1 rifle at my side. And I looked out and saw the shore of your country, and I was terrified going into a war. And I said to myself, I don't think in my whole life I will ever be so frightened again. And that's exactly what happened. I was never as frightened as I was at that time. So Kenneth Gordon and I gave over 100 concerts together. We played serious classical music to the soldiers, and we played to international troops on the front line. We would land on an airstrip. Sometimes the plane couldn't land and we'd pull up, and I thought we were going to be killed. And then finally we landed, and we moved a piano into the base of a hill so that if the shells come over, we wouldn't be injured. And I tuned the piano myself. I never tuned a piano ever, but I learned how to do it. And the soldiers sat up on the slope of the hill, and we gave serious concerts that way. And Walt Thompson was a pop singer. And I don't know what has happened to him. I have never seen him since I came back from the army, but I do see Kenneth Gordon quite a lot.
네, 말씀을 드리자면은 이 케네스 고든 이분은 굉장히 유명하신 그러한 저명한 바이올리니스트이고요. 뉴욕 가수가 있고요. 실제로 이제 케네스 고든과 저는 한국에 도착을 해서 100회 이상의 공연을 함께 진행을 했습니다. 그래서 이제 클래식 음악을 진지한 클래식 음악을 군인들에게 들려줬고요. 실제로 최전방에서 그 유엔군들이 모여 있는 곳에서 저희가 공연을 했었습니다. 어쩔 때는 저희가 탄 이렇게 비행기가 내려오다가 착륙을 시도하다가 다시 올라가는 경우도 있었습니다. 공격이 있었기 때문인데요. 그때는 저희가 못 내리고 죽을 수도 있겠구나라는 생각을 했습니다. 그래서 이렇게 그러다가 이제 결국에는 피아노를 실은 그 비행기가 다시 착륙을 하게 됐고요. 저희는 이 전장의 포화가 있는 그런 전장에서 연주를 하기 시작했습니다. 실제로 그 전까지는 제가 피아노를 조율하는 것을 못했었는데 이렇게 한국에 오게 되면서 제가 피아노도 조율을 하고 그래서 연주를 하게 되었습니다. 그 언덕 같은 곳에서 전장에서 저희가 연주를 했었는데요. 거기서 굉장히 수많은 연주를 같이 했었습니다. 그 다음에 이제 월터 톰슨 같은 경우에는 팝싱어입니다. 이제 그냥 대중 가수인데요. 그 이후로 제가 한국에 와서 본 이후로는 보지를 못했습니다. 이 케네스 고든만 계속 만날 수가 있었습니다.
I want to add something to this also.
이 부분에 대해서 좀 더 첨언을 드리겠는데요.
The entire Seoul Philharmonic Orchestra and Chorus were drafted into the Korean Navy to protect them so that they would not have to fight on the front line.
예, 그리고 또 하나는 이제 그 당시에 서울 필하모니 오케스트라의 단원들이 있었는데요. 그 연주자분들도 한국의 해군에 입대가 되었습니다. 그래서 이들이 전선에서 싸우지 않아도 되도록 보호를 받는 상황이었습니다.
This attests to the fact that the Korean government held music and culture in a very high degree of order.
네, 이러한 사실을 보면은요, 한국 정부가 음악과 문화에 대해서 얼마나 높게 평가하고 있는지를 잘 보여주는 것이라고 생각을 합니다.
And there was a third question from the freelancer columnist. And the third question was about this concert on the poster. And the poster says that soprano Han Pyung-suk's solo recital, and she graduated from the Advanced Musical Academy in Japan, and she played as Carmen in 1955. And she was a very famous vocal musician in Korea. And how did you meet with her?
Yes, we were introduced. She ran a tea room in Daegu during the war, and she participated in our concerts in Daegu. And I wanted to add that it wasn't only for the soldiers that Kenneth Gordon and I performed, but we performed just as many concerts for the Korean public. And I used to coach Han Pyung-suk as vocally, interpretively. I helped her to sing more persuasively. Unfortunately, she died. I was hoping that I could see her here, but she's no longer with us. But I wanted to tell you that the conductor of the Seoul Philharmonic was Kim Sang-ryo, or John S. Kim, as the American anglicized name was. And he allowed Kenneth Gordon and me to play concertos with his orchestra. And the public was so excited about these performances that they broke down the door of the theater. They had to call the military police to restore order. So many Korean people wanted to hear these performances. And I wish to tell you something about my contribution to your country. I gave the first performance in Korea of the Brahms First Concerto and the Rhapsody in Blue by Gershwin. I don't know of any musician that I've ever met in this generation who can say that they gave the first performances of those two pieces, because all countries have played them for years, but it was my contribution to the culture of Korea. So I have a very deep musical connection to your country.
제가 이 한평숙 씨를 만나게 됐던 거는 이분이 전쟁 당시에 대구의 그 메인 스트리트에서 티룸을 운영을 하고 있었습니다. 그리고 이제 저희가 그 당시에 대구에서 이런 콘서트를 하게 될 때 단순히 군인 신분이었던 케네스 보든과 저만 하는 게 아니라 좀 더 다른 민간인도 참여를 해서 한국의 대중들에게 음악을 선보여야겠다라는 생각을 해서 함께 하게 됐던 것이 2년이었고요. 실제로 제가 이 한평숙 씨에게 코치 역할을 했었습니다. 그 실제로 그 성악적인 부분에서, 그 다음에 어떤 음악 해석하는 부분에서 좀 더 설득력 있게 노래하는 법을 제가 그 당시 가르쳤었습니다. 그래도 이분이 돌아가셨죠. 오늘 이 자리에서 여기서 다시 뵐 수 있었으면 좋았을 텐데 하는 생각이 듭니다. 그다음에 또 말씀드리고 싶은 것은 당시 서울 필하모닉의 지휘자셨던 김생명 씨가 계신데요. 영어로는 존킴이라는 그런 분입니다. 이분이 케네스와 저를 함께 콘체르토 연주를 할 수 있도록 해주었습니다. 그래서 함께 공연을 하게 되었었는데요. 그 당시 한국의 그 국민들이 굉장히 열광적인 성원을 보냈습니다. 너무 이 공연을 보고 싶어하는 나머지 밖에서 기다리다가 문을 부수는 상황까지 와서 결국에는 저희가 헌병을 불러서 이렇게 다시 질서를 잡을 수밖에 없는 상황까지도 갔었습니다. 제가 한국의 어떤 음악에 기여를 했던 바를 조금 말씀을 드리자면요. 제가 한국에서는 최초로 브람스의 일본 콘체르토를 연주를 했고 랩소디 블루를 연주를 했었습니다. 아무리 그 당시에 저희 세대의 다른 음악가들에게 물어봐도 그것을 저보다 먼저 했다는 사람을 제가 본 적이 없었었는데요. 그 당시에 이러한 곡들이 전 세계에서 연주가 되고 있었지만 한국에서는 되지 않고 있었고, 그래서 제가 최초로 한국에서 연주했던 연주자라고 말씀드릴 수가 있겠습니다. 이렇게 제가 한국의 문화와 또 음악적인 어떤 깊은 인연이 있다고 말씀드릴 수 있겠습니다.
And now it's November 1951, and it's time for me to go back home. And before I left Korea, the general of all the United Nations, General James A. Van Fleet, who was a 5-star general, invited me and Kenneth Gordon to his private office, and he invited every general in the United Nations, and we gave a concert in his private office. I was a private first class, so you can imagine me coming before a 5-star general. I, of course, went immediately into a salute, and he said, no salute. He was very, very friendly and a lover of classical music. So that was the last concert that I played in Korea as a soldier.
그 다음에 1951년 11월이 되자 이제 제가 집으로, 고국으로 돌아갈 시간이 되었었는데요. 제가 떠나기 전에 그 당시에 그 유엔군의 사령관이셨던 장군이셨던 제임스 반 플랫이라는 장군이 계셨습니다. 5스타 장군님이셨는데요. 케네스 고든과 저를 그분의 개인 그 사무실로 불러서 모든 그런 유엔군의 장군님들이 보는 앞에서 연주를 하도록 했습니다. 그 당시에 제 계급이 일병이었는데요. 그래서 제가 그분은 장군님이니까 너무 높으신 분이니까 보고 제가 격려를 하려고 했더니 아니라고 하지 말라고 하시면서 굉장히 친절하게 대해주셨고요. 음악에 대한 그런 사랑을 보여주셨던 분입니다. 그분의 그런 개인 사무실에서 했던 연주가 제가 군인으로서 했던 마지막 연주였습니다.
자, 다른 질문하실 분, 네. 캐수정.
Hi. My name is Jiwon. I'm a journalist from Arirang TV. So I have a number of questions lined up for you, if it's
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
So the first question would be, you were a pianist before you joined the war. So you were learning piano.
Oh yes, I was having a career as a pianist.
So then I want to ask, what led you to join the war and give concerts on the front
I
line?
didn't join the war.
Well,
I was inducted into the war against my will.
okay.
I did not volunteer to go into the war.
So then what led you to play the piano instead of holding guns and fighting in front of them?
Well, when I was inducted into the army, I was an ordinary soldier like everyone else. As a matter of fact, once I was inducted into the army, I used it as a means of discovering if I could be liked as a person and not just as a musician. It was a very interesting period in my life. And I found out that everybody liked me even though they knew I didn't play the piano. So that helped me a lot. But once I was in Fort Dix, New Jersey in infantry training, in the evening I would go to the service club and I would play. And one of the major the director of special services happened to come into the service club while I was playing. So when my basic training was over, he brought me into special services to protect me so that I could go on practicing and giving concerts. But then a rule came down that every infantryman had to go to Korea during the war. So I was sent to Korea as an infantryman, and so was Kenneth Gordon. And the first thing we did, I did, not Kenneth Gordon. He didn't know how. He thought we're going to go to the front line and be killed. We both thought that. So I went to the special services officer and I said, can we give a concert for the soldiers in Daegu? And he said, of course not. The soldiers don't like classical music. And I said, please let us try. He said, all right, I'll give you a chance to try. So I went to a Korean MP school and I borrowed their Yamaha grand piano and I requisitioned a truck with 6 Korean laborers. They didn't speak one word of English. I never moved a piano in my life. Somehow, we moved the piano into the hut in Daegu where they showed movies to the soldiers. We put the piano on the platform. We gave the concert, and the soldiers wouldn't let us off the stage. They applauded. We had to just play one piece after another. So they sent to Japan for gabardine uniforms, right? So we were in fatigue uniforms. And they sent us where civilians could never go. You know, there were civilian famous entertainers that entertained during the war, but only in the service clubs, never on the front line. But we were infantrymen, so they sent us to the front line to play, and that's how it happened.
네, 굉장히 긴 질문이었는데요. 이제 질문은 전쟁이 있기 전에도 피아니스트이셨지 않냐라는 질문에 직업적인 피아니스트였다고 말씀하셨습니다. 그리고 실제로 군대에는 자원을 하신 게 아니라 징집이 됐다고 말씀을 하셨습니다. 그렇다면 왜 전투에 참여하지 않고 피아노를 치셨는지에 대해서 질문을 하셨는데요. 대답은 이렇습니다. 저희가 이제 군대에 군인으로 가게 되면 그럼 보통 사람이 됩니다. 사실 제가 징집이 되고 나서 좀 뭔가 자신에 대한 발견을 하는 어떤 시기였다라고 생각을 합니다. 제가 피아노를 치지 않아도 실제로 모든 사람들이 저를 좋아하더라고요. 그리고 이제 저희가 제가 뉴저지에 있는 보병 캠프에서 이제 트레이닝을 받았었는데요. 그 당시에 거기에 이제 서비스 클럽이 있었습니다. 서비스 클럽에서 제가 일단은 서비스 클럽에서 피아노를 치게 됐는데요. 거기는 이제 담당하셨던 분이 스페셜 서비스라는 그러한 그 국내에 있는 부서가 담당을 하셨는데요. 이제 저희 어떤 기본적인 트레이닝이 끝나고 나서 기본적인 군사 훈련을 받고 나서 계속해서 연습을 하고 또 콘서트를 해줄 수 있게 한 부처였습니다. 근데 그 당시에 보병이라면 당시 모두 한국에 파병돼야 되는 상황이었습니다. 그래서 케네스 보존도 그렇고요, 저도 그렇고 처음에는 저희가 피아노를 칠 거라는 상상을 하지 못했습니다. 저희가 그냥 보병으로서 전선에 보내져서 죽게 될 것이라는 생각을 했었습니다. 그런데 이 스페셜 서비스를 담당하고 있던 군 관료에게 가서 저희가 한번 대구에서 저희 콘서트를 하는 게 어떻겠냐라고 해도 되겠냐라고 여쭤봤습니다. 그랬더니 물론 당연히 안 된다고 하셨습니다. 그분의 대답은 군인들은 클래식 음악을 좋아하지 않는다라고 말씀을 하셨는데요. 하지만 저희가 한번 시도를 해보겠다라고 말씀을 드렸습니다. 그래서 허락을 받게 되었는데요. 저희가 한국에 있는 한 학교에서 야마 그랜드 피아노를 빌려서 6명의 그 한국의 인부들, 영어를 한마디도 못하는 그 인부들과 함께 트럭에 피아노를 싣게 되었습니다. 그전에는 사실 제가 피아노를 칠 줄만 알지 옮겨본 적은 없었습니다. 그리고 나서 어떤 헛간 같은 곳을 갔는데요. 그 피아노를 옮겼었는데 거기가 바로 이제 대구에서 군인들이 영화를 보는 곳이었습니다. 그런데 이 군인들이 그 장소에서 제가 피아노를 치니까 연주를 하니까 굉장히 좋아하셔서 계속 연주를 하게 되었습니다. 근데 실제로 저희가 그 당시 입고 있었던 옷은 다 군복, 개버드로 만든 군복이었는데요. 사실 이러한 외부 장소에서는 일반 그런 민간인 신분의 그런 연예인이라든가 이런 분들을 공연을 할 수는 있었습니다. 하지만 전선에서 실제로 그러니까 전선의 한 가운데서 연주를 하는 민간인 연예인들은 없었습니다. 음악가라든가 이런 분들은 없었는데요. 하지만 저희 같은 경우에는 훈련을 받은 보병이었기 때문에 결국에는 전선에까지 보내져서 그런 연주를 할 수 있었던 것이었습니다.
You're the most amazing interpreter.
Thank you very much.
I think that when I'm going to give a long speech, I'm going to stop and let you translate. Shall I do that? It's easier for you, isn't that
Thank you
right?
very much. You're very kind.
다른 퀘스천
Just one more question. So during the Korean War, you said you experienced the most frightening moment of your life. And I believe the war changed your life very much, different from what other musicians would have lived. So have you ever regretted the choices you have made in this life?
Have I ever what?
Regret the choices you made?
To regret the decision? What decision?
The decisions to play in the front line and...
I didn't make that decision.
Well, you said you asked the...
They sent us to the front line to entertain. I never would think that I should ask the officer, would you send me to the front line where there was a war raging, right?
Yes.
From day to day, we didn't know if we were going to live or not. Sometimes the units were overrun by the enemy. It was only a question of where we were. We were very fortunate and to be saved. Translate.
잠깐만요. 지금 시간이 없어가지고 너무 쉬운 영어라서 다 아실 수 있는 거죠. 통역 필요 없을 것 같아요. 괜찮죠? 예, 다시 질문하세요.
네, 저희 연합뉴스의 문관영 기자인데요. 아까 한번 제가 질문을 먼저 던져봤었는데 음악을 통해서 이 전쟁에 참가했던 사람들에게 위안을 줬던 거에 대해서 많은 사람들이 의미를 좀 부여하고 있는데 2008년도 같으면 뉴욕 필하모니가 평양에서 공연을 했습니다. 그에 대한 또 많은 그 평가가 있는데 세이모 선생께서 혹시 초청을 받는다면은 평양에서 연주를 할 의사가 있는지 혹시라도 그게 한반도 평화에 도움이 된다면은 한국이 아닌 북한이라는 지역에서 피아노를 연주할 수 있는 그런 의사가 있는지 한번 묻고 싶습니다.
I'm from Yonhap News. My question, and I know that you gave a lot of consolation to the soldiers during the Korean War through your concert and music. And in fact, in 2008,
1968, the New York Philharmonic Orchestra had a concert in Pyongyang in North Korea. And if you are invited by the North Korean government, would you play piano in Pyongyang, North Korea, for if it is for the peace on the Korean Peninsula?
Before I answer that question, does this man sing because he has a beautiful bass baritone voice? Ask him if he sings.
예, 질문에 답하기 전에 너무 목소리가 바리톤의 그 좋은 목소리를 갖고 베이스 바리톤의 목소리를 갖고 계십니다. 혹시 노래를 하시는지요? 노래하실 수 있으신지? 노래를 보통 하십니까?
제가 이름이 관현이라요. 굉장히 음악적인 이름입니다만 전공은 문학을 해서 제가 노래를 못합니다.
In fact, my name is Kwanhyun. It's translated into English like string instrument. And so my name sounds very musical, but I studied literature, so I could not sing, unfortunately.
I see. So now I want to answer his question.
예, 이제 질문 답드리겠습니다.
I no longer give public concerts. I decided that I no longer wanted to participate in the commercial aspect of being a musician. So when I was 50 years old, I arranged my last concert and I didn't tell anyone. And I've been free and happy ever since. So I no longer give public concerts. But when Ethan Hawke made the documentary on me, he asked me if I would come out of retirement at the age of 86 and give a concert for his theater group, because he said they don't know very much about music. So I practice for 8 hours a day to get my playing back to performing again. And it's in the documentary. If you have the DVD, you can hear the full recital that I gave for Ethan Hawke's theater group. So now, if North Korea invites me to their country, I would be very happy to go. And what I would do is to give master classes to the young pianists there. And I would like to meet the president and tell him that he ought to study music and he ought to take piano lessons, and I will give him his first piano lesson to civilize him, because it seems that the only thing he's interested in is basketball players. So music is the most civilized, harmonized experience that people could have, because in order to be a musician, you have to understand your emotional feelings, your intellectual feelings, and physical coordination. You put it all together and it becomes an experience that affects your whole life. It's not just that you become a better musician, you become a better person. So if I could only give piano lessons to the president of North Korea, I think I might be able to civilize him.
네, MBC 김나리 기자입니다. 제가 묻고 싶은 거는 그 27일에 참전용사들을 위해서 피아노를 다시 연주하게 될 텐데 감회가 어떤지입니다. You will be playing the piano for the veterans who were there with you at the war site like 60 years ago. And how do you actually feel about that?
How do I feel about playing now for them?
On the 27th.
I'm looking forward to it. And you can understand that with all of the veterans here, this is a very dramatic experience for all of us, because we're reliving a very painful experience in our lives. And I wanted to address myself to something that dear Young Jin said to all of us a few minutes ago, how grateful he is to all of us. Well, shall I tell you something very interesting? I think that one of the major reasons for being alive is to make a contribution to other people. That ought to be a priority in life, don't you think so? To make a contribution. The fact that we were allowed to help Korea to experience freedom and to help them endure all the hardships that resulted from the war, that was a great privilege to us to be able to do that. So it wasn't only that we sacrificed ourselves, but we got back in return a great sense of joy for having been able to do that. So I think that all the veterans feel as I do about that. And I wanted to say that publicly.
예, 일단 질문하신
네, 동아일보 김범석 기자입니다. 두 가지 질문인데요. 첫 번째는 아까 죽을 뻔한 순간이 있었음에도 불구하고 아까 한국을 제2의 고향이라고 하셨는데 그 이유가 무엇인지가 궁금하고요. 시간이 이제 60년이 흘렀는데 6.25 전쟁을 겪으시면서 한국 그 전쟁에 대한 생각이 좀 어떻게 바뀌셨는지 여쭤보겠습니다.
I'm from Donghua Daily Newspaper. I have two questions. First one is that you came to here during the Korean War, so you are on the brink of dying or being killed. Then why do you call Korea as a second home for you? And that was the first question. And the second question is that almost 60 years have passed since the Korean War. And over all these years, have your perception of Korea and the Korean War has changed?
First of all, after the Korean War, in 1955, Kim Sang-yeol, the conductor of the Seoul Philharmonic, went to the United States government and asked if he could bring over to Korea 5 musicians to start the first music festival ever to be held in Korea. I'm going to stop and let you translate that.
네, 먼저 말씀드렸거든요. 한국전 이후에 55년도에 그 서울 필하모닉의 김생렬 그 지휘자께서 미국에 오셨습니다. 미국에서 미국 정부에 요청을 하시기를 한국 내에서 최초의 음악 페스티벌을 하고자 하니까 5명의 뮤지션들을 데리고 주십사하고 요청을 했었습니다.
I'm trying to explain why I call Korea my second home.
예, 그래서 제가 제2의 고향이라고 왜 한국을 부르는지에 대해 설명을 드리겠는데요.
So Kim Sang-yeol came to me in Newark, New Jersey, where I lived with my family, and he asked me if I would come for 2 months to stay in Korea to start the music festival. I said, of course I would love to. Then he chose Kenneth Gordon, the violinist, and Richard, I can't remember his name, he died. He was the first cellist of the opera orchestra in New York. And Peter Altobelli was the first horn player of the Pittsburgh Symphony. And Michel Nazi was the first oboist of the NBC Symphony Orchestra under Toscanini. Picture now, these 5 musicians. I was the only pianist, so I had to accompany all of them in their own recitals, give my own recitals, and so forth. I had the brunt of responsibility.
예, 네, 그래서 그 당시에 그 김생녀 지휘자께서 제가 그 당시에 뉴저지에서 가족들과 살고 있었는데요. 그때 저에게 찾아오셨습니다. 그러면서 한국에 한 2개월 동안 와서 이러라고 말씀을 드렸습니다. 저랑 함께 또 선택된 그런 뮤지션들을 보면은요, 바이올리니스트인 케너스 고든 씨가 있었고, 그다음에 리차드 씨가 그 성이 잘 기억이 안 나는데요. 이분은 이제 뉴욕 필에 있어서 제일 첼리스트였었습니다. 피터 알토벨리라는 피츠버그 심포니에서 일하셨던 분이 있었고, 그다음에 또 미셸이라는 그 오보이스트가 MBC 심포니에 계셨던 분입니다. 그 당시에 저는 이제 유일한 피아니스트였습니다. 그래서 저희가 같이 이렇게 연주회를 저희 혼자도 하고 또 같이도 하게 됐었는데요. 이러한 과정을 통해서 제가 어떤 책임감이라는 것을 배우게 되었습니다.
So there we were, all in the Bando Hotel. It was the tallest building in Seoul, 9 stories high.
예, 그래서 저희가 이제 반도 호텔에서 연주를 했는데요. 그 당시에 그 9층짜리 반도 호텔이 서울에서 가장 큰 빌딩이었습니다.
I must say that Seoul was a very primitive city at that time.
예, 그래서 서울은 그 당시에 발전이 전혀 안 된 그런 도시였습니다.
And it was a very innocent city.
예, 그리고 또 굉장히 순수한 도시라고도 말할 수가 있었겠죠.
And the music festival started, and every day for 10 days, the festival landed for 10 days. Every day from 9 to 12, I gave a master class for pianists.
그래서 이제 이 음악 축제가 시작이 됐었는데요. 한 10일 정도 지속이 됐었습니다. 근데 매일 아침 9시부터 12시까지 제가 피아니스트들에게 마스터 클래스를 가르쳤습니다.
And every evening, there were solo recitals and chamber music recitals with groups of us playing together.
네, 그리고 매일 밤에는 제가 독주회도 했고요. 그 실내악 그 챔버 연주회를 저희 같이 갔던 그 음악가들과 함께 연주를 했었습니다.
So you can imagine that every day from 9 to 12 for 10 days, I met all the wonderful Korean young pianists.
그래서 생각을 해보시기 바랍니다. 매일매일 제가 이렇게 또 마스터 클래스를 제공을 했었는데요. 아침 9시부터 12시까지 10일 동안 아주 뛰어난 그러한 젊은 피아니스트 분들을, 한국에 계신 분들을 만날 수가 있었습니다.
Some of them followed me home to New York to study with me.
어떤 분들은 저희 미국의 뉴욕까지 쫓아와서 저랑 함께 공부하신 분도 계셨습니다.
And then in 1960, I returned to Korea by myself under the auspices of the United States government.
그리고 이제 미 정부의 후원하에 1960년도에 제가 한국에 저 혼자 또 다시 돌아오게 됐었는데요.
The government gave me a first class ticket around the world. An airplane ticket. A first class around the world.
예, 정부는 저에게 전 세계를 갈 수 있는 그 1등석 항공권을 제공을 했습니다.
It was a time where there were no jet airplanes.
예, 그 당시에는 제트기가 없었던 그 시절인데요.
It took 34 hours to go from New York to Seoul.
예, 뉴욕에서 서울까지 34시간이 걸렸습니다.
And it was 1960, and I had a whole series of concerts arranged in Seoul.
1960년도에 와서는 서울에서 1년의 그 연주회를 계속 가졌었습니다.
One day, I was in the university, one of the universities, to give a concert at 12 o'clock noon.
네, 근데 어느 날 제가 어떤 서울에 있는 한 대학에서 12시에 이제 연주를 하게 되었는데요.
And the director told me, I will come and let you know when to walk out on the stage.
네, 그 디렉터분이 오시더니 와서 언제 이 무대에서 나갈지에 대해서 얘기를 해주겠다라고 말씀하셨습니다.
I looked at my watch, and it was 12 o'clock, 12:15, 12:30 and I didn't hear any sign of an audience.
예, 그래서 언제 이제 무대로 나갈지에 대해서 알려주겠다라고 말씀하셨습니다. 그래서 제가 계속 시간을 보고 있었습니다. 그런데 12시가 되고 12시 15분이 되고 12시 30분이 됐는데도 관객이 있는 듯한 느낌은 전혀 없었습니다.
So I knew something was wrong.
그래서 뭔가 좀 잘못됐다라는 생각을 하게 됐는데요.
I went out on the stage and there was nobody in the audience. The auditorium was empty.
그래서 제가 무대에서 나와서 밖을 살짝 보게 됐습니다. 그런데 그 홀 전체가 비어 있었습니다.
They fully understand when you said they don't need to translate. So you can
What?
They fully understand when you said they don't need to interpret it right now. Okay. You can.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah. The reporter fully understand when you said. So at that point, you don't need to interpret it.
Oh, I don't have to
Yeah.
stop?
No. You can tell the audience right now. You don't
Oh.
need to interpret.
I still don't understand what you mean. But anyway,
The
I
audience
went-
could understand your English, so just don't stop talking.
oh, don't stop talking?
Yeah.
Oh, I see. So I want you to continue? All right. So I went outside of the auditorium, and there I saw the students gathering for a revolution. They were going to overthrow President Rhee's administration. I already heard gunshots everywhere. The revolution had started right at the time that I was going to give my concert. You want me to continue? So in 5 minutes, a truck came with American MPs to rescue me, to take me back to the Bondo Hotel. And while we were driving to the Bondo Hotel, I saw all the students gathering in protest against your Korean government. And the shots were firing everywhere. The policemen were firing at the students with M1 rifles that I trained with in the Korean War. You can imagine what an experience that was. I got to the Bondo Hotel and they closed down the iron gate and I was very safe within the hotel.
통역 필요 없을 것 같고요.
So interpretation will not be needed.
Not necessary?
Yeah.
Okay,
They already-
so now the Bondo Hotel was filled with men who had different businesses in Korea, international men. And we were on the roof of the Bondo Hotel, 9 stories high, and I saw the policemen shooting the students. Right in front of me, they were killing the students. I was overcome with anguish to see this. And all of a sudden, a bullet came up through the iron rail against which a businessman was standing, and the bullet went into him. He fell. And I called across the street to the American embassy, someone has been shot, and they sent ambulances, of course. Now, the American ambassador to Korea was Walter P. McConaughey, and he was a professional clarinetist. And he and I used to play concerts together at his home. He went every day to ask President Rhee to resign. And President Rhee at first refused, and that's why the students were in an uproar against him. And then I wanted to do something to show that America was on the side of the students. So I asked the ambassador, please, can you move a piano into the hospital, and I will play for the wounded students. So he said, this is a wonderful idea. So international reporters heard about this, and they televised my performance at the hospital. When I came to the hospital, my heart was broken because the mothers had to identify their dead students, and they were screaming, "Aigu, Aigu," and I was just in tears all the time. And my parents in Newark, New Jersey, were watching the news one day on television, and there they saw Seymour playing the piano for the wounded students. So it went around the world. Picture what an experience I had, continuing with my experiences with the Korean people. Do you now understand why it's my second home? I have a very deep connection to all of you. So after the revolution, which was so difficult, President Ri did resign. And I remember when I left Korea at the airport, all the students and the teachers came, and we were crying for an hour. Tears, real tears, from all the suffering that everyone went through. Then I returned to Korea a fourth time because my book, With Your Own Two Hands, was translated into Korean, and I went to universities to give master classes. And here I am for the fifth time going back to my second home. Oh, well, you can imagine when I came for the fourth time to Korea, and I saw Seoul reborn out of the ashes, so to speak. You know the mythology of the phoenix, the bird that burns itself up and comes back to life? Well, Korea came back to life, and look at this modern city now, and look how everything has advanced. Do you know that your young Korean instrumentalists are winning first prize in international contests? I think that to see how Korea has rebuilt itself culturally, politically, financially, is one of the models of the whole world. And it gives me enormous pleasure to know that I had a part in it. And now if they want to know anything personal about me, my friend Bill Finizio, he knows me better than anyone else. He's traveling with me to help me. So if you would like to ask him some questions, he could tell you some personal things about me.
시간 혹시 더 질문하실 분 계신가요?
다이어리 관련해서 준비하신
Do you want to open this diary? So 이게 6.25 당시 때 본인이 기록했던 다이어리예요.
This makes me cry.
Yeah.
I have a question actually because I watched the your documentary, the introduction, Seymour introduction.
Yes, well, you heard when I read the
Yes,
diary that
yes,
I cried the whole day.
You read it after 20 years later.
I did, yes.
And I was wondering, you mentioned about the corpses, and that's why it made you cry. But I wanted to, well, I'm sorry if I may make you cry again.
No, I'll
but-
try not to cry.
Okay. But I would like to know what you have written in those diaries. 일기장에 어떤 내용이 담아 있는지.
Oh, well,
20년 전에
the reason I started to cry was because I remembered seeing body bags of my dead soldiers, right? And I remember going to play in a hospital ship, and the doctors told me the men in this ward are going to die. And when I read this, all the horror of the war came back to me, And I just cried the whole day.
And those are all written in those diaries.
Yes.
All recorded.
Yes. Since not all of it, but some of it was. And it was mostly also not only the horror of war, but the intimacy established with the students and some of the Korean people who helped me. It moved me so deeply, you see. That all added to the fact that I started to cry. With Ethan Hawke, on the day that I spoke about my Korean experiences, when it was filmed in my apartment, he told me, we're going to film your discussion of your experiences in Korea. And I said to him, don't go too far because you're going to make me cry. And he went too far. And I started to cry and the cameras were rolling. And I said, Ethan, you're not going to use this, are you, in the movie? He said, are you kidding? Do you know what it means to make actors cry? They cut onions under their head, or they put drops in their eyes and make them cry. And he said, you cried spontaneously? It stays in the movie. And you know what? I've seen the movie about 30 times. And every time I see it, I start to cry. Yes.
네, 이상으로 질문 다 기자회견을 마치고요. 혹시 마지막으로 혹시 신청하시고 하나만 더.
답변이 아니라 전쟁에 대해서 전쟁을 직접 겪으셨잖아요. 그러니까 전쟁에 대한 생각이 남다르고 특별히 생겼어요. 네, 그러니까 아까 제 질문에 하나가 더 있었는데, 그러니까 전쟁을 직접 겪으셨잖아요. 그러니까 직접 겪으신 분 입장에서 전쟁이 좀 어땠다 말씀을 부탁드리겠습니다.
You personally experienced a war, so as a talk about your perception about war.
About war. I can't think of anything more terrible than a war. It seems that there's no way to avoid it, because when people have different opinions, they don't allow other people to have different opinions. And this is one of the evils of religion. One religious group defies another religious group because they don't believe in the same God. And they start wars among themselves. And of course, countries start wars among themselves. There doesn't seem to be any way to avoid this. And it grieves me to know that people have not become really civilized, that there is something irrational in humans that want to kill and cause harm to other people. So I'm not happy when I think of civilization. But there is a part of civilization, the art world. People who are devoted to the art world, especially in music and painting and literature. Those activities seem to civilize everyone. So here I am, an American pianist, and when I'm with a Korean student and I don't speak their language and I don't know anything about their background, we have a unified feeling as though we're of the same person. We're not different. The culture's not different, the language is not different, but the musical language is the same. And so that is, I found that is my means of making a contribution to other people through music.
예, 이상으로 기자회견을 모두 마치고요. 오늘 바쁘신데 우리 기자분들 많이 오셔서 감사드리고요. 오늘 이렇게 열정적으로 기자회견을 해주신 우리 버스타이스님 큰 박수로 좀 이렇게 남겨주시기 바랍니다.
And now conclude the press conference.